And we are live. So thank you, everybody. I believe that we are uploaded on Facebook and on Zoom, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. As I am doing this, I will be able to see how many participants are coming in, and besides our panelists, we already have a few. So I'm going to go ahead and start the welcome. Welcome everybody to the 19th Amendment Centennial series of online events. This is happening August 18th through the 26th. It's very special dates, as August 18th, just earlier this week, was the ratification of the 19th Amendment 100 years ago. And August 26th is Women's Equality Day, and also when the 19th Amendment was signed into constitutional law. We are hosted by Sonoma County 2020 Women's Suffrage Project and celebrating that centennial of the 19th Amendment while also acknowledging that many people, including women, women of color, people of color, trans women, non-binary individuals, and formerly or even currently incarcerated women and men in the United States are still disenfranchised and denied their voting rights. We are just 74 days away from the November 3rd general election, and we are in the final stages of completing the 2020 United States Census. All in the midst of fighting a global pandemic, and here, unfortunately, in Sonoma County, also fighting many fires. Having the right to vote in elections and having your government conduct an accurate census are both fundamental and vital to all of us as part of our democracy and as free citizens. Tonight we are presenting our second event in our series, and it is very timely. Voting and census facts. And the two folks that we have with us, I am extremely grateful to both of them, as they are two top-level experts in our county joining us to answer your questions. We have Sonoma County's Clerk-Recorder-Assessor and Registrar of Voters. It's Deva Marie Proto. And I kind of had to get a chuckle right there, because as a female, I understand the many titles, but you pull it off so well. And we also have Vince Harper, Community Engagement Director of Community Action Partnership, Sonoma County. And Vince, I could add a few titles to that as well for you.
All good, right?
Yes. And I am Leslie Graves, the co-chair of Sonoma County 2020 Women's Suffrage Project and your moderator for this evening. We are going to have about 30 minutes of questions that I will field, and or our panelists will field, and I will throw at them. And then we will answer your questions as you post them on chat. So wait until about that 30-minute mark, but we'll see them all. Remember that you can provide those questions on chat, but also on Facebook Live. If you're there, we do have some tech support, thanks to my husband in another room in our house, going ahead and fielding some of those questions and sending them over to me. So we're going to jump in right now. Hi, Deva. Hi, Vince.
Hello.
It's great to see you. We don't get to see each other as much right now during this pandemic, and unfortunately now there's a little bit of a, fire and ash in the air. So even without the pandemic, we might be staying indoors a little bit more. And as I said, this is very timely that we're talking about voting and census facts. And Deva, we've got to jump right in with you because it's a hot topic. Last night, I know people are coming off the DNC convention and watching that and being very inspired, but also probably having a lot of questions, right? I saw you over the weekend, you were answering many questions on Facebook. I was like, she's there. Oh my gosh, she's answering that one too. So I'm going to start right now by asking you, can people still register to vote?
Absolutely. They can register up until 14 days before the election as a regular registration. After that, you can register, but it's conditional and it has to be in person in our office or in one of the in-person voting locations.
So give us that date again, that you can register by mail up until
You can register to vote 14 days before the election.
Okay. All right.
You can request a vote by mail ballot up to 7 days before the election, but due to the pandemic, that won't be necessary this year.
Right, right. So in the state of California, we're
Yes,
all receiving mail-in ballots. They'll all be mailed to our addresses. But that brings up a little touchy subject. I know back in our last election that folks had been displaced from the fires. And then currently right now in Sonoma County, we have, acres that are burning, unfortunately dwellings that are burning. And our hearts go out to those folks that are being displaced. But what should they expect? Because where is their mail going to go? How can they prevent, not getting their ballot?
Well, if somebody's house does burn, if they rent somewhere else, what we did in the 2017 fires when so many people were displaced is we gave people a choice. You can choose to vote at your new location. You would need to re-register at your new address, just as if you had moved regularly. Or you could choose to keep your old address because maybe that's the area that you're familiar with, you're comfortable with. That is your home. That's where you are invested in your city council member or the measures, the school districts that are in that area. So you could use just a different mailing address for yourself to your temporary rental. So we'll be communicating with people, especially as things calm down from the fires, about how they can re-register or update their information.
Yeah, and I can remember that your office was definitely so on top of that and getting out the information in lots of different channels, on radio stations, in the paper, social media, on your website. I really, hats off to all of you, because I know that takes a tremendous amount of effort, and it's really pertinent because just a week or so ago, I saw you actually start to list all the different candidates, the different ballot measures throughout our local area, as well as then the state and the national. And let me tell you, folks, it's a robust ballot that is coming at us for November 3rd. And so our districts are important to us. Now, in Sonoma County, we have more districts for city council seats and for our school districts and whatnot. So your hands are full right now, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's already started.
Very hard right now. We have 122 different ballot types for this election. So that's 122 different ballots and also 122 different voter information guides that we will be sending out to everybody within, the next month and a half.
Right. So that information is coming at us. Our ballots are starting to come at us at near the beginning of October. I remember the date being
October 5th.
October
yes,
5th.
We'll have all the ballots mailed out by October 5th. It might take a couple days for them to reach people, but they will be in the mail October 5th.
Yeah, yeah. And Vince, we don't want to leave you out of this discussion. The census is so important. I've had the pleasure, everybody, of joining events on some of the census events here in Sonoma County, trying to get the word out, trying to get folks involved in filling out their census and turning it back in. Vince, just right away, why is the census so important? Tell us.
Well, I think most importantly is that the census is in the Constitution, so it's mandated that every 10 years that we do a census of everybody living in the country. So everybody. So that's any person, regardless of documentation, regardless of age, everybody counts. And so it's very important. It helps us very importantly decide about how many seats that each state will have in Congress. It decides about enormous amounts of funding, about $675 billion that go to communities across the United States, and everything from roads to hospitals to schools, you name it, services like my agency, Head Start is also dependent on an accurate count in the funding in the census. So it's very important to for a lot of reasons. And also it's our civic duty. It's in the Constitution, and it's something that we should be doing every 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. And if I remember right, schools depend on funding that is decided upon with our census numbers. Some of the fire funds, some of the funds that come at us in situations like this, where we're having fires in Sonoma County and actually throughout pretty much the state of California. So, and it's, we want our voices heard, and part of how our voices are heard and represented is having a good and solid numbers from that census, correct?
Yes, and really important. So all the services you mentioned, as well as businesses use it. There's medical services that certainly use it, emergency services like you spoke of. It's just, what I told someone the other day is that you name it and I could probably tie it to the census somehow, funding or other important resource that comes to our community. And I think that another thing that's really important for people to realize that when people, we understand people, if they get counted, we understand how that data helps out. But when we don't get people counted, it's not just a kind of an invisible thing that just happens. It will cost our community. And the estimates are anywhere from $1,000 per person who isn't counted for 10 years up to $2,000 per person not counted for 10 years. So, so think about that. If that's, $20,000 over 10 years, but multiply that by hundreds or thousands of people in a community. That's a big loss to a community. And it's not like those people don't require services. They still need services. So we just don't have the data to prove that they exist.
Right. Yeah. And define for me who counts within the census. Is it my newly born child? Is it my resident that might live at my house with me? A relative? Define who counts for me.
So everybody that you just mentioned, and basically there's the census day is April 1st. So you would look at that day and look at that as the day that if a baby was born as of April 1st, then that baby would be counted. Anybody living in the home, anybody, so whether it's someone who is a relative or someone that's sleeping on the couch for months at a time who lives there, it's very important that every person get counted somewhere. So the slogan that that the census has, counting everybody once, only once, and in the right place. So meaning, if your relative is there for a couple days, they got kicked out of the house, they won't be counted there. They need to count where they sleep mostly. But if it's a relative who's there for has been there for 6 months and there's no sense of them leaving, that is somebody who you definitely want to count.
Yeah. And that dovetails right into a question for you, Deva. And I know it's a little at the state level for California, but I know that you know this and around the census and how that is going to play into our bigger districting that we do for voting in California, and how that sizes up. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because I think folks may not know that some of that process in actually even locating the people that are going to help to make those kind of decisions is just happening right now. I just read there's a gentleman in Petaluma that is becoming part of that districting process. So maybe you can speak to that.
Sure. So the census data will then inform all the state legislative districts and the county districts, the city districts. So they basically want to split everything into equal portions, and the data they're going to use to do that is the census. So in 2021, we'll be working on the redistricting for the county, and that will include redrawing our supervisorial lines. And depending on where people live at that point in time as compared to 10 years ago. We may see boundaries shift because perhaps they have done a bunch of construction in the first district, and therefore they need a little bit less space because they have more people in there, and we need to even it out between the districts. And each of the cities will go through their own processes as well.
Yeah.
If they say.
Yeah, so we're going to be seeing a really direct effect from the work that Vince is doing, and many others throughout our county are doing, getting that census, numbers in and making sure that people are counted. That's going to have a direct effect on local elections as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's good to know this information. It's good to talk to the two of you, because then we know that we're getting the straight facts. It's not, well, let me go Google that, right? You guys have that embedded in your souls. And Vince, when we're talking about the census, I know that occasionally I've seen you with Community Action Partnership and the county services around the census as well. They'll talk about where we're at. Where are we right now? Where's our percentages of people that have taken the census, filled it out, and what are the percentages of people that we still need to get and have them fill that out and partake in the census right now?
So we're actually, as a county, we're not looking bad. The overall rate in California is around in the 60% rate, response rate. And in Sonoma County, overall, we're hovering around 70. Santa Rosa is hovering around 70, 70.8 or something like that. But some of the cities are doing quite well at the 78%, 77%. And it just goes. Being from our location being in Santa Rosa, I tend to kind of put a lot of pressure on us to do better than being the last city in the response rate. But it seems like that's where we are in terms of Santa Rosa. So overall, what we're hearing from the census is that's about the rate that they were, kind of their benchmark rate. However, someone asked me the other day, so what would you like to have a goal? And I said 100. Not trying to stretch it too high, but ultimately, I will be very happy, if we're in the 80s, if we're in the 90s. I mean, as close as we can get to getting a complete count. That's the goal. There's certainly challenges right now around not having as much time as we thought we were going to have. October 31st was the later extension of the census due to COVID-19. However, that's been cut back to September 30th, and we're just living with it and trying to get it all done. So I'm optimistic that we're already doing well, and I just my hope is that we'll get much higher by September 30th.
Yeah. It's a lofty goal. I like your goal though, the 100%. I say go for that goal. But we were talking a little bit earlier off air, and you talked about this last, maybe 20 or 30% of the population, and being the hardest to gather. And I know that a lot of people filled out the census online, that there's a big push, through advertising on TV, through advertising, in media sources, even here locally. So how do those people get counted? Are people still, even during the pandemic, knocking on doors? Are you going to see folks going around to homes? What should people expect?
So this month, people will be seeing census workers in their neighborhood. So they've delayed it, obviously, because of COVID-19 and the safety issues. But this is where we are. They should be out in neighborhoods now. The hard to count populations are low income, so African American, Hispanic, Asian. So in 0 to 5, children 0 to 5, and just children in general, don't tend to get counted. So looking at those population, the strategy that the state of California and the local providers have been working on is the whole trusted messenger strategy, which takes a look at where people are comfortable. Maybe it's their school, maybe it's their preschool. Agencies like us who provide some sort of like homeless services or medical services, and going to those organizations and using that trusted relationship that they already have and asking our agencies to talk about the census. So and since, you know, if you look at community action partnerships population that we serve the hardest to count of our community. And so all of those, you know, you could just check those boxes away in terms of hard to count and say we serve them in and out of our doors throughout the year. So who better to make people more aware, to encourage people to fill out the census. So they have 3 different options. They can do it online, they can do it by phone, and they can still do the paper version. If they have not, as we mentioned earlier, if they have not done it by now, they should be getting a knock on the door from census takers. And very important that the self-response is still available all the way through September 30th. But they will be coming and knocking at your door to get those responses. So we just encourage people, you know, if they knock on your door and you say, hey, I've already done it, you know, that'd be really good. But they're coming, and you know, it's the law that we all participate in this, and it's very important that people share that information, that their information is private and protected, that there's as a trusted messenger, I cannot collect people's data, so I cannot fill out their forms for them. We are more of an encourager. The census workers are the people who you can give your information to. They're sworn to keep your privacy for like 75 years, and under penalty, you know, under penalty, I think it was a $600,000 fine. And so the maximum confidentiality there, and they cannot share their information with landlords, with law enforcement, with ICE, with anyone, because that data and that information, your information, is so important that they don't want anybody scared, confused, and not giving that information because of some other issue, because it's so important to our democracy. And the last thing I say, there's no citizenship question on the census at all. So
yeah, so we all count.
Yes, you all count.
We all count. Yeah.
And they're out there. And the other thing is, I just want to say is that they're easily identifiable. So they should be, you know, they're right now they're sending out descriptions of what they might look like, you know, in terms of having their badges, having their census gear on. So if somebody, and also what they ask is very important. So if anybody asks anything about bank account numbers, social security numbers, anything like that, that's not a census worker. Do not give that information, and call the census and report them. You could call local law enforcement. If people are, you know, people will be opportunistic. We want people still to be careful, but it's good to participate.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for all that information. I think we forget, you know, some of us that maybe have already filled it out. You know, like you said, it's already been out there since April, and this process has been rather long. That there's still people out there that may have these questions. Is it safe? Is it secure? Is there a citizenship question? Will people come to my house? Will they wear a mask? I know your answer is going to be yes. So they'll have their ID, they'll have their census, you know, badge, and then they'll also be wearing a mask. They're going to take those COVID precautions, and maybe, you know, the rest of us, maybe we could ask our neighbors, did you fill it out? Maybe we can ask our friends, right? You said you're one of those trusted facilitators of this, But now we don't have kids going to school. We don't have kids going to the preschools. So we're going to have to check in on our elders that are living down the street from us, that are living in our apartment buildings, and making sure that everybody knows that this information is there, and making sure that they know that census takers are going to be coming to the door if you've listened to this or you see this as a recording. So thank you for sharing all of that great information. And Deva, when you think about that, and the security of mail-in ballots, what a hot topic right now. There's a national debate going on about mail-in ballots. Being a Navy brat, my family down in San Diego, I know that many years people have been doing mail-in ballots, and it's been working for the military. So tell us a little bit about the security of our mail-in ballots.
Okay, first, a random fun fact. I was actually a census enumerator going door to door for the 2000 census. So I still remember that. So mail ballots, there's a lot of confusion right now between absentee and mail ballots if they're kind of different things. Okay. Fundamentally, there is no difference. They can only be sent to active registered voters. They are sent to an individual voter. We have that person registered in our system. We have either a social security number or a California driver's license. We are mailing it to a specific person. We are comparing the signature when it comes back to that specific person's signature. If people are concerned about their ballot, they can actually sign up to track it right now, and you can get text or email updates the same way as Amazon or FedEx, which is kind of exciting. You can see as it's on its way to you, when you're sending it back, once we receive it, once we process it. But we've been doing ballots that are mailed for a very long time. We have about 80% of Sonoma County voters have chosen to permanently vote by mail. We always have a little bit more than that. The big controversy with mail ballots right now are that they're not requested. But we actually have people in Sonoma County every year who get mail unrequested ballots because their precincts are too small to actually have an in-person polling place. Oh. So nothing going on this year is really that different or brand new or unusual. We have a lot of security processes around it. We do a lot of proofing. And a lot of people have concerns about the voter rolls that, maybe we haven't updated it since the last presidential election. But registration and the maintenance of the voter files is actually something we do on a daily basis. We are getting in new registrations. We're getting in, I saw today, we got a death file in, so we'll be processing those people. We get information from the courts. We get information from DMV. So there's constant address updates, moving out of the area updates, information from the state if somebody's registered elsewhere. We do a lot of work to make sure that our active registered voters are as current as possible. And we check every signature. A human checks every signature. And then if it doesn't match, we will mail you a letter. So if your signature has changed over time, we can not only see the signatures that you used in the past, so maybe you're getting older and your signature is changing. It's nice that we will be able to see the progression of that. We can also see signatures in your household. So we do have spouses sometimes accidentally sign the wrong ballot. We can't accept it in that case, but we'll mail them both a letter and let them know you probably signed each other's ballots. You need to come in and correct your signature.
Wow. Wow, it's just amazing all the work that goes into voting and the results and collecting the ballot, sending the ballot.
Our staff is amazing and dedicated and patient, and by the end of this, they will be lying on the ground, exhausted because they're putting in so much work right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the other hot topic with mail is the mail, right? Right? I feel like let's all shake our heads. Yes. So the United States Postal Service, who knew that all of a sudden in 2020, not only would we be talking about a pandemic and, all of these other issues that we're going through, but the Postal Service, the thing that is supposed to just be a tried and true and it seems untouchable, seems like, these are the superheroes that are really, just making the mail happen. Who could you pay 47 cents to and have them take your mail to Alaska? The Postal Service, right? So they're incredible, but here they're under a little bit of attack. There's some reimagining going on by people that I don't know that their imaginations are all too well equipped to do that. So what is your stance? Not getting into the political aspect of it, but as far as the mail-in ballots, nationally, there's some information about, get your mail-in ballot. You said they're going to be mailed off October 5th, and people are saying it's going to take, 2 to 3 weeks for it to get to you and 2 to 3 weeks for you to get it back into the registrar's office, and make sure you drop it off instead. I know you've mentioned about more boxes, more secure boxes going out into the county. So this is a pretty rich question right here, but should people expect in Sonoma County, you don't have any control over the Postal Service, but what should they be expecting? What are you hearing? You might have some of those top level discussions going on.
Well, we are, all the registrars in the state are on a weekly call with the state representatives from USPS. And then we've also had meetings with our local USPS representatives. And everybody right now is really assuring us that they are able to handle this. We in California, again, we have a very rich history of voting by mail. So this is not unusual for them. We have first class postage. So some states do not. So ours has a 3 to 5 delivery day time frame. We have the official election logos on there, which does prioritize it. We'll give copies of all our envelopes to the Postal Service so they know to recognize it and prioritize it. So we're not anticipating an issue, but we do know that people are very concerned about it. And so that's one of the reasons we're pushing the tracking of the ballots so that you can be reassured. You will know when your ballot drops in the mail to you, and you will know when you get it. And if you're concerned about it getting back, you can mail it and track it. If it hasn't returned to our office and you're concerned about it, you can maybe vote in person if you want to, or if you want to bypass the Postal Service on the way to our office entirely, you can use one of our secure drop boxes or take it to an in-person voting location.
Yeah, yeah. And so you mentioned about the 3 to 5 day delivery period, and that being first class mail. So I just want to clear up a question that I know that you were using this term endearingly as kind of whack-a-mole, because there was a lot of questions around postage, and I saw you like answer that question and answer this question. You were going from question to question. You're like, if you don't, well, I'm gonna let you say it. Do we need to put stamps on our mail-in envelope of the ballot?
Nope. California, we have postage paid ballots. So everything, it should say no postage required if mailed in the United States. And you do not need to put a stamp on it to send it back. The county and the Registrar of Voters office, we pay for that.
That's great. That's great. So no postage required. Save your stamps to send those Christmas cards and letters, and get that mail-in ballot in. And I know right now, is it still going on that we could maybe fill out a survey about where to put those extra secure mail-in boxes around Sonoma County?
Yes. So we have changing up the election a little bit this year because of COVID. And so one of those things is changing our in-person voting locations, as well as adding more drop boxes. And so right now, through Monday, we are accepting feedback on some of our proposals for those locations. We've gotten some good responses. I'm really excited. Based on some of the feedback we've gotten, we are shifting a couple of things, and we've maybe located another building in an area where we didn't have one because we didn't know it existed. And somebody said, hey, it would be great if you had one here, and here's a contact for you. So
right. So the public's voice and their input really matters to you. I mean, it sounds like you actually use that. That's a vehicle for you to actually be able to make these changes and serve people better.
Yes, I haven't gotten to everybody who's responded yet, but I will be responding to everybody who provided their email to let them know, because some people have concerns, why are you not choosing, for instance, this high school for an in-person voting location? And it's because we started this process in May or June, and we really didn't know what the school situation was going to look like. And so we had a conversation with the superintendent of schools where, we were really kind of asked, if you can avoid using schools, that would be the best, because if we're using it as a voting location, anybody's invited onto that campus. And especially with the health concerns, they want to make sure that they keep those campuses restricted to only the people that need to be there. Same thing, we have a lot of polling places that are senior centers. So they don't want a lot of people coming on and potentially infecting their seniors.
Yeah.
So, but it also meant we were looking for new places, and I don't necessarily know where there might be a building available. So.
Right. Yeah. So a little bit of like that little online game that kids and adults play, Carmen San Diego. Like it's Carmen, Sonoma County. Like, find us a voting place. Find us a place to put one of those secure boxes. Well, Vince, I want to ask you a question as I open up this chat right here, because I think I saw something coming through that would pertain, and it does for you. So we're opening up that chat, folks. Again, I want to remind you that you're here with us for the 19th Amendment Centennial series, and tonight we're talking about voting and census facts, and we've got with us Vince Harper, Community Engagement Director from Community Action Partnership, Sonoma County, and that is also Deva Marie Proto from the Sonoma County's Registrar of Voters, and she's got a longer title than that, but we'll say that again later. But Vince, a question from our audience right here. How can the people that are shelterless currently, and we know that we've got 2,000 to 3,000 people in Sonoma County that don't reside in homes. They don't have a shelter that they're providing themselves. Maybe even the county is helping them out with that. How do they participate in the census? Are census workers going out to those individuals? How are those numbers being gathered?
Yes, actually the census workers have been going out for months, actually looking at those special categories of people. So they would be homeless, it would be, even say students living in dorms and those kinds of things, trying to get those institutional counts as best they could at that time. And, as a matter of fact, one of our shelters that we run, there was, at some point I was out giving presentations saying, yeah, the census workers won't be out until June. And our housing person saying, hey, there's somebody asking us about, are they, asking us census questions, are they legit? And what we did is I wasn't familiar at that time. I didn't know all this then. I was saying, hey, we need to call the census and figure out if this person is legit. And so we had this long conversation with the person, their supervisor, and, oh no, it's legit. They're out there, making these counts. So so they want to make sure that all people are counted still, regardless of not having a home or not.
Okay. So in that, you said a really key phrase right there, the institutional counts. And I'm hearkening back to one of those meetings that you and I were in for the Community Advisory Board for the city of Santa Rosa, and that reminded me that those institutional accounts are not just shelters, but they're also the group homes and the senior center, or the long-term care maybe for seniors, or also those that are incarcerated, right?
Right. Yeah. So all of those counting, and even if people they live on a particular near a street corner, they don't have to have an actual address to be counted, that they still can be counted, just getting an estimate of where they are. So they're really thinking in terms of how to reach out to those who are hard to count in those ways as well.
And those that are hard to count are maybe those that are going to be needing some of those services, right?
Yes.
That the census is going to help us to secure from the federal level. So it's especially important that those folks are being counted, I would suppose.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's really important that people can just volunteer to be counted. So if they don't think they got counted, they can still go online. Telephone is probably the easiest way to contact someone and from the census and be able to get counted. And what they're really trying to do is to get everybody counted. And they're saying that we'll just double check. We have ways to understand if somebody's maybe got counted twice, so they can eliminate that second count. So but the most important thing. So the one of the trainings that I went to early on was, we just want you to get counted. Let us figure out, let the census figure out, the accurate count, and whether, they have ways of doing that. So don't let that stop you if you don't think you've been counted.
That's great. That's really good to know, because, it has been a long time span, and there has been a lot of trauma during this time span from April until now. And then obviously we're going through, additional traumas that are taxing on our mental capacity for all of us, right? And so if maybe we forgot, don't worry about it. You're saying, go ahead, fill it out again. The census and the great staff and all the census workers and the experts there, they'll figure that out for us if there's been a duplicate, and they'll take care of that for us.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then right to you, Deva, that same type of a question, those folks that maybe don't have a residence. We always think about voting, and it's so important to have that residence. So how does voting work for people that maybe are, homeless right now, or shelterless right now, are in between homes? We talked a little bit about those people that are displaced from the fires earlier, but what about those people that are on a more kind of semi to permanent basis of being shelterless?
Well, similar to what Vince said, you don't actually need a physical house address to register to vote. You can also register with cross streets. We do need a mailing address. So sometimes we've seen P.O. boxes being used, and then maybe a local shelter that people will receive their mail at. So people do register. We have homeless advocates that come in. Our office doesn't do a lot of registration drives, especially during election years, simply because we don't have the capacity. Yeah. But there are a lot of nonprofit groups out there that really do wonderful jobs with different groups doing registration drives, and there are homeless service advocates that go out and try to get everybody registered.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I know a number of those groups that are out there, and then once the pandemic hit and they were no longer have these large events to table at, to do registration by drives, they did a pretty good job, from what I understand, of like shifting gears and going to a phone type of a system to phone folks and actually check in on them, you know, doing those kind of voter wellness checks, I guess they would call them, to make sure that people are registered, make sure that they have the information that they need. So hats off to all those organizations, because it's a lot of work, right? And I would imagine sometimes they get questions that they have to defer to you.
Sometimes, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think all of us have questions we just defer to you. So thanks for having large folders for all of us. You talked about your staff, and I know that, you know, you admire your staff so much, and they do tremendous work. But what if someone is really interested in working at the election? I know last night on air they were saying, you know, register to vote, get your mail-in ballot now, register for that, sign up to be a poll worker. So do you have opportunities for people to become poll workers here in Sonoma County, and how do they do that?
We have an application on our website that they can fill out. We have inspectors and clerks. We pay a stipend for bilingual workers, because we really do have some federal and state requirements in terms of language accessibility, and it'll be a little different this year because we are doing early voting. So at each of our locations, they're going to be open for 4 days. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Election Day. So we may have more opportunities than normal to volunteer. Maybe you couldn't take any time off during the week, but maybe you're willing to work the weekend. But we've so far had a pretty good response. We're just now starting to really dive in to the people who have applied and see where we can get people assigned. So, and then we'll have to start talking about training in mid-October. So.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning the early voting. So I think that that's a term that we're hearing more in the press. People talk about early voting and listing which states have early voting and you know, whatnot. And not all of us really understood what that meant. So you're saying that as early, like November 3rd is when we vote. And that is on a Tuesday, correct?
Yeah.
So it's on a Tuesday. And you're saying that those voting polls, locations are actually going to be open on the weekend. Did I hear that correct?
Yes. So again, you know, shifting because of COVID, making sure that we have the physical PPEs for all our locations. You know, we've had like 175 polling places sometimes across the county. So that's a lot of volunteers. It's a lot of equipment that goes out there. And, you know, like I said, we rely really heavily on the schools and senior centers. Those were not going to be available this year. And so our other option, which was allowed by the state this year, was to have fewer, larger locations that are open for 4 days. So we will have at least 30 locations around the county, but they will be open for the 4 days. So we have some places like the Petaluma Veterans Building, Sonoma County Fairgrounds, the Cloverdale Fairgrounds, and Sebastopol Community Center, Sonoma Vets. So we're trying right now to finalize all those locations. And we've had some great community groups step up and allow us to use their facilities. So
great. That's great. Well, yeah, that clears up a lot for me. And I'm sure our listeners and as well those people that will be able to view this later, because we are recording right now and we're going to be posting this voting and census facts as part of the 19th Amendment Centennial series on our YouTube channel, and it'll be as a recording on Facebook so people can refer back to this information. And that voting early, that sounds like a great solution for the pandemic. It allows people to observe the COVID precautions so that we're not all showing up on Tuesday, November 3rd, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yes. And I will point out that we've always had early voting, but just only at our office. So anybody could come in and vote and get their ballot. in our office, but never around the community because we just don't have enough resources to do more than just our office. And so we're shifting gears, and we will have it open Saturday, Sunday, and we'll be observing social distance protocols, cleaning. We're working on those plans right now to make sure that we keep everybody safe. Yeah. We will have curbside voting available. We'll be taking vote by mail drop-offs at those locations. And one thing that is also going to be different is we're going to be running it more as a county-wide thing as opposed to a polling place thing. So it used to be that each person was assigned to their polling place. That's the only ballot you can get there. So if somebody is in the Sonoma Valley, they need to vote in that district because that's the only place they're going to get Sonoma City Council and their school district and maybe a City of Sonoma measure. But maybe that same person works in Santa Rosa or works in Sebastopol, and it's not convenient for them on election day. Well, now they would be able to go to any facility in Santa Rosa or Sebastopol or in Sonoma, and we'll look them up, verify that they have not yet cast a vote, void any ballots that were mailed to them, so we won't let you vote twice, and then we'll print your ballot right there. So the person who's going to Sebastopol but lives in Cloverdale or Petaluma will get their ballot with their school districts, their city council, and that type of thing on their ballots.
Wow. It just seems like we've taken leaps and bounds in our voting protocols just over the past year or two, right? I mean, does it feel like that to you, or are you watching the child mature and not seeing? I'm not quite.
So this is this type of voting scenario started really in 2018. There are a couple counties. It's called the Voters' Choice Act. It's a little bit different. The numbers are the same. We'd still have about 30 locations, but with the Voters' Choice Act, the counties that opted to do that, they actually had to have, for us, it would be 6 locations that were open for 11 days, and then 30 locations that were open to 4. The only problem is nobody votes that early. And so it wasn't a great use of resources because they had an average of 1 person per day coming into each of those facilities that were open for the 11 days. Once you hit the weekend and the Monday, Tuesday, you got more people in, so it was worth it. And you also had to buy new equipment. We're doing mobile ballot printers and things like that. And that's a big upfront cost. So there were only a few counties that were utilizing that model, although some of the big ones like LA and Orange County. But with COVID, that was our opportunity. The state and the federal government has CARES Act funding. So to enable us to transition to this type of model, we were able to leverage some of that grant funding.
That's great. Well, much appreciated, because I know that that's going to, as this information goes out there, and I know that people are going to take advantage of that. I would imagine, and I've already heard people say that they're, even though they have the mail-in ballot, all of us do, and they are very used to mailing it in. They feel very secure about that this year they're going to walk it in. That this year they are, that they want to walk it in. So, and for the experience of it, for the picture outside, and whatnot. So thank you for again, all of that work. And again, that's the Voter Choice Act that we're taking.
The Voter Choice Act, yes, allowed us to, and we were going to be looking at it as a possibility for 2022. We just didn't have the resources really to do it, and we have to get very creative with COVID, and we've done a lot of things that we didn't have the resources for, but we've managed to make it work. So we'll see. I will make one comment, because I know I get comments from people all the time They really, really like that I voted sticker.
Yes.
And it is in the mail ballots.
Oh, yes.
So you'll get your sticker even if you do not come to an in-person location, because we do have people who always said, you know, I'm coming in person because I want that sticker.
Yeah.
So everybody who votes will still get a sticker.
They'll still get a sticker. That's great. I seem to remember I got one with my mail-in ballot back in March during the county, you know, election and the was that the primary election that was going on. So I do remember that. Yeah, that was great, and I think I actually kept it. I didn't actually affix it to anything because I was like, I just in case I want to keep this one. So so that's great information. We're actually coming to the end of our hour, so I want to make sure that folks, if you have a question that you'd like to type in at this time in our chat on Zoom or on Facebook, we are getting that information. Bernice says to all the panelists, and I know that's our co-chair of the Sonoma County 2020 Women's Suffrage Project, Bernice Espinoza says, thank you for being here, even though there is a fire happening, actually many fires happening, right, in Sonoma County and throughout the state of California we were mentioning earlier. And our big shout out there to our firefighters that are obviously you know, being our heroes right now, and our hospital care workers that are out there that are, you know, attending to folks during this pandemic, as our numbers have been pretty large lately. So, you know, well over 100 for the past few days, and to everybody in general, for really taking the precautions, for wearing your masks, for being social distancing, for sheltering in place when you can, and making sure that you stay safe, and that, you know, hopefully with those good behaviors that we're able to bring those numbers down, and in the midst of everything else, that we're able to, you know, resume life somewhat as we knew it before all of this. But we're hanging in there. It's called Sonoma County Tough, right? Sonoma County Strong. So Dorian Stansberry, thank you so much. She's watching on Facebook. So we do have those people that are watching on Facebook. And I want to give you guys a couple minutes at the end here. Vince, do you have any last thoughts, or, you know, that, oh my gosh, I forgot to say this to our viewers, to let them know about the census, or even, you know, where to go, what do you do? And as you do that, I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to take us into a share screen, because I do have some resources written out so that everybody can see that. So you'll only be able to see the person who's talking as I'm doing that, probably. Go for it, Vince.
So actually I wanted to have a plug. So we've been doing something called a Census Caravan. We've done one in Roseland. We've done one in central northwest Santa Rosa. We're going to do our third and final census caravan. We're renaming it a Census Parade, and we'll be doing it in the South Park neighborhood of Santa Rosa. And the Census Parade is basically people come together kind of in a festive type of atmosphere, decorating their cars to promote the census, and then we do a parade through a neighborhood and wave and honk and share who we are, and we end in kind of a festive. This time we'll be ending in Martin Luther King Park, and we'll be doing some giveaways of masks and PPE equipment, and then also talking about the census more. So hope people are able to come out to that and enjoy it, and that will be September 26th, Saturday. So excited about to share that with everybody.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. September 26th, a census parade, very similar to a census caravan in our vehicles, and having a lot of fun. And people react really kindly to that. They come out of their houses, they cheer the census caravan on. I've done that with Vince, and we decorate our cars, and we make census more visible, which is, we need to do that, right? And that's just the last few days of the census, because tell us that date again, that we'll be able to continually online, by phone, go ahead and do our census if we haven't gotten it in yet. What's the deadline?
September 30th, 2020. So that's when it's all over. And I just want to say to Deva real quick, we will be doing voter registration somehow. I haven't figured it out yet. But on that day, when we're doing that parade at the end, we will have a booth, a voter registration booth.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Voting and the census go together. That's why I paired you guys up. It's a great duo right here, voting and the census. It's very interconnected, very important both. It, like I said, fundamental to our democracy and to us as free citizens. And we need to participate. We need to actually have that engagement with both the census and with voting in order for our democracy to thrive. So I've put up on the screen, on a little share screen right here, some of those voting and census resources. Deva, your last thoughts, and maybe go through some places for people to go to get more resources. Your online site is just chock full, I know. I was visiting it not only today, but I visited it in the past, and it's an amazing amount of information.
There is a lot of information on it. I think the biggest things that people need to do right now, most important things, are to go check your voter registration status. There's a link on our website, but it's voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. And make sure that your information is correct. Make sure that your address and your name is correct. If you have moved or changed your name, you need to re-register to vote. You can do that at registertovote.ca.gov. And then the tracking your ballot, obviously, I think is really important, and I think that'll be something that'll be really valuable for people. And then keep an eye out. Our voter information guides will start going out towards the end of September, and then those ballots will be hitting the mailboxes in early to mid-October.
Yeah, and that's some of these links are right here on the screen right now. So the registertovote.ca.gov, really important one. If you go to Sonoma County .ca.gov and even in their search bar, if you don't have all of that link right there to get to the Registrar of Voters, just go to Registrar of Voters on the Sonoma County site. And also you have a Facebook page, right? So yes. The Registrar of Voters does have a Facebook page, and Deva is phenomenal on Facebook. She's very interactive.
It's not always me on the Facebook, on the Registrar of Voters book. So we have our chief deputy had a wonderful idea about doing presidential and now this year governor's birthdays, a little series. So we have some fun stuff like that.
That's great. That's great. Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate both of you getting the word out. Thanks for sharing that last bit of information. Remember, folks, that this event will be recorded. It'll be on our YouTube page. It'll be on our Facebook page, and we'll put little updates on there too on our site, the Sonoma County 2020 Women's Suffrage Project. So you can get that there. We do have more of our 19th Amendment Centennial series is coming up. We started on the 18th. That was the 19th Amendment's ratification date 100 years ago, and talk about an important vote. That was an important vote right there in 1920. And then on August 26, 1920 is when that amendment was signed into constitutional law. So that's how we came up with our dates, and we have quite a bevy of events for you. Coming up on Friday, tomorrow, we have Cristina Ramirez-Reyes, and she will be telling us her story. She will be giving her oral history right here on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, because this is a very special presentation. This is one of two times during this series, both her on the 21st, Christina on the 21st, and Maria Salinas on the 22nd. They will be speaking in their native languages. So Christina will be speaking in Treke, and she will be translating into Spanish, and then we will have English subtitles on that presentation, and that's why it'll be pre-recorded and presented tomorrow night at 5:30, and then we have another presentation for Maria Salinas on the 22nd at 3 p.m. So our weekend times are a little bit different. Check out our Facebook page and our website for all of that information. You can see that website right down there at the bottom of the page, socowomen2020.org. And I want to say thank you again to Deva Marie Proto. Say your long title right now, which is Sonoma County's Clerk, Recorder, Assessor, and Registrar of Voters. She does it all. And also Vince Harper from Community Action Partnership, Sonoma County, the Community Engagement Director. He is the king of community engagement here in Sonoma County. It is always a pleasure to see both of you. I also want to thank our sponsors right here. We've had a year-long project that we have put together, and it has been a pleasure to get out the information and to talk about voting, talk about the history of the suffrage movement. And here we are at the end of the year, and it's really been a joy. So lastly, thank you to everybody who's tuned in today, tonight, and all of you that will be watching this in the future. This is a bounty full of information from Deva Marie Proto and from Vince Harper. Please go out, find that information, help others to vote. Remember that not everybody has the opportunity to vote because they may even feel as if they are disenfranchised, and that is something that we as a nation need to work harder on. Suffrage movement is unfinished business, and it's really important that all of our voices are heard and that we are all counted. So we're going to look forward to seeing more folks joining us tomorrow night, Saturday, and through the 26th. We've got a lot of events for you. Thank you again for coming out. Thanks for joining us for this 19th Amendment Centennial series. Everybody stay safe. Wear your protective gear, whether it's for the fire or for the pandemic, because we want to see you at our next event. Everybody, good night.
Thank you.